We're playing NASCAR 15 for the final time 10 years later before NASCAR 25 arrives. Hello everybody, and I hope you're all having a great day. Welcome back to our brand new video here on the channel, and I wanted to play NASCAR 15 for the final time and check out and see what we've lost, see what we've maybe gained in NASCAR gaming. And the first thing I was really diving into was look at the paint booth creativity that we haven't had in so many years. You had so many different shapes, you had custom decals you could put on your race car. It was fully fledged out. It was so much potential and creativity that you could have, and we lost that in the NASCAR Heat Series and we never got it back. All the way through to NASCAR Heat 5, it was simply presets that you could choose from, and placements for sponsors were all, predetermined as well, and you had to just the only option you had was to change the sponsor on the car, or number fonts and stuff like that. So we know NASCAR 25 is going to have a way more NASCAR 15 style paint booth based off of what they have said, but what we're most intrigued by is, well, the actual racing here from NASCAR 15. This was such a fun game to play back in the day, and it's nice to come back for one more time before we move on to NASCAR 25 in this brand new era of NASCAR gaming. And we kick things off with Daytona. What I really wanted to do today was basically try out all different track types, so a super speedway, a short track, a mile and a half, and a road course as well, and then we'll move on from NASCAR 15. And I'm going to be going through every week doing the NASCAR Heat games as well, one more time before NASCAR 25 of course does come out here. As we got 10 laps as Jeff Gordon in this Daytona 500. Look at this proper roof cam. This was something we'd never gotten in the NASCAR Heat games, was a proper roof cam. Oh my goodness. Massive check up there on the outside. Thankfully we are able to avoid that one, but super speedway racing was really interesting in NASCAR 15. I mean, the pack racing was quite fun. It went 3x3x3, but this game was plagued by the same super speedway issue that pretty well every NASCAR game has with the AI, where, instead of real life where you can jump up to the middle lane and get some momentum rolling, or go up to the top and do the same thing, it's a bottom fed type of racetrack when you're racing the AI. You got to be on the inside if you're going to go forward, and it's like that in the NASCAR Heat games that came after NASCAR 15 as well. This is something that we've never really seen get properly figured out by the dev studio that was making the game. And of course NASCAR 15 was the last game made by Utechnics before it moved on to Monster Games and 704 Games with making the NASCAR Heat Series. So now, one thing that was interesting, to me was, this was the 5th iteration of Utechnics making NASCAR games, and we were still locked to only the NASCAR Cup Series. And in the entire 5 years, they had not managed to get any Xfinity representation, Truck Series, or anything below those series as well. And that was always super, super frustrating as a player to me. And you think about career modes, we didn't have any silly season after 5 years. I mean, it was pretty straightforward. The career mode never really changed much other than, you could have some R&D on your own team, but that was it. We never really progressed, in my opinion. They kind of released NASCAR Inside Line, and then, that was pretty well it. We got a pretty cool paint booth, of course, when we went to NASCAR 14, but outside of that, outside of a paint booth, the NASCAR games under Utechnics never really progressed. And that was always really frustrating. It kind of felt like we were getting the same thing year after year. And they always used licensing and sponsorship issues as a reason they couldn't do trucks or Xfinity as an excuse. But obviously NASCAR Heat proved that wrong, and so is iRacing with the upcoming NASCAR 25. Here I am leading, though, on the final lap of this Daytona 500, and, it's fun driving your way through the field. That's one thing that's great about these games, and Utechnics did really well, is that it's fun to drive on a controller, as I'm actually going to get turned by Danica Patrick through the grass, coming to the line. Casey Kane, our Hendrick teammate, actually picks up the win, and we end up 13th. You know what this game had as well that we don't have ever since this game? Photo mode. That's right, we had a proper photo mode in NASCAR 15. Look at this. You can actually go in and change the camera, rotate, do everything you want, mess with the effects. How in the world did we go through the entire NASCAR Heat Series and not get a photo mode? So yeah, there was certain things in this game that we do have that have been completely lacking through the entire NASCAR heat in NASCAR 21 as well pipeline. So we come through into now Martinsville, short track racing as Chase Elliott, and I remember this one all too well back in the day playing this game, and I always have been a big fan of Martinsville, but I always hated Martinsville in this game because the AI would do this. They would do this kind of 3 wide. You will see the AI sometimes. They will be 4 wide at Martinsville, and it's obviously the most unrealistic type of racing of Martinsville you're ever going to see. And this always really kind of broke immersion for me playing as a, like a young kid at 15 or 14 whenever this game came out. I guess it came out in 2015, but it would have been early, so it would have been still 14. And I just remember kind of being like, man, they don't race like this in real life. At Martinsville, this kind of sucks. And I always remember as well on the hardest difficulty, it was really hard to be good at Martinsville and win races. And we're starting at the back for all of these races here in this episode. And you can see 25 laps, and by lap 5, I've barely moved forward. It's all about just being patient, kind of rolling that curb there on the inside. And we're actually passing the 33 there of Ty Dillon, that was. And we continue going forward, and you're going to see some great things that this game still did have to offer, even with some frustrations with the AI. They do stretch out and they kind of get a little bit more legit for the most part. But actually, this right here, I get completely ran over by the 7 of Regan Smith. Thank you, Regan. Now we're 4 wide down the back straightaway, and I'm trying to cut down in front of Kyle Larson. He's going to say no. He hits us in the left rear. We save it. We get it going. But that right there is the physics that we need so bad in the new NASCAR game, because we have not had it in forever, excluding NASCAR Ignition. But when you get hit in the bumper or hit in the left rear, it actually unsettles the car, loosens it up. You go for a slide, but you can still drive the car, where in the NASCAR Heat Series, of course, it was you get hit in the left rear or whatever, it never got you sideways. It actually made you like tight. It kind of popped you up the racetrack, and it was really weird. It was extremely unnatural. It didn't make any sense, and that was what this game did so well, was the handling, the physics. It was super fun, but it also didn't feel, arcadey that much. I mean, it was still arcadey. It was more of that simcade feel, but it wasn't super arcadey like a NASCAR Heat Series, and it was a lot of fun to play. And I remember playing multiplayer back in the day and having an absolute blast, in leagues and as well. I mean, you guys know Jay. He's a big friend of mine, and he's often featured on this channel. He actually started his own league back in the day. It was called like the 200 mile per hour racing league, and we had so much fun back in the day playing these games and doing the league racing here. But we would come through to finish 29th in Martinsville as Chase Elliott. But the AI kind of sucks here, but outside of that, it was a really fun experience. And now I said, okay, let's do a 1.5 miles. Jimmy Johnson at Charlotte Oval. Of course, back in this point in time, I don't even think the Charlotte Oval was thought of. But we can come through to kick off the Coca-Cola 600 here, and this was where I would say the most fun in NASCAR 15 was at the 1.5 miles, because you're not really going to see it fully represented in this video. But I mean, over the course of long races, you would have some proper tire fall off, and you can manage your tires, and you as well, I mean, make a difference by pitting for tires, and you could do undercuts under long green flag runs and stuff like that, and that was always really fun. It felt like there was proper tire wear and management kind of in this game. And as well, feel, that was another thing that was really done well in these Utechniks games, and conserving fuel. You actually had a clutch that you would push in on your controller with the A button, for example, and you would of course shut the engine off through the corner, and you would save fuel. And that was always fun, trying to save fuel, conserve, and get to the end. I always had a blast doing that. And as well, on top of that, another thing that kind of comes to my mind is just look at the racing here in these 1.5 miles. It's still not perfect. The AI, in my opinion, NASCAR 15, I mean, they weren't terrible by any means, but they were certainly not perfect. And you could see this was a common thing at 1.5 miles, is these kind of checkups from the AI. In one corner, they would kind of stomp on the brake pedal, and you could kind of cruise by all of them, and that was always annoying. Nothing you can do about it, of course, as a player, but and you can kind of see a lot of 3 wide action here, because they all kind of get really clumped together. Almost reminds me of like restarts of next gen racing in NASCAR. It was like the game here was like 8 years ahead of its time. But it was still fun, even with the flaws of this game. It played so well and handled so well that you could have quite a bit of fun, and not only single player, but online as well. And as actually going to be on the receiving end of AJ Allmendinger having a moment, and look at this right here, something we don't have ever since NASCAR 15. You actually had flashbacks, rewind mode, so if something happened, you could rewind the game and have a second opportunity to recover and not have to experience what I just did. What was that? With Allmendinger. Nonetheless, I face the repercussions. I decide to not rewind, and I remember under cautions how long you had to wait to come into the pits, because it wasn't like NASCAR Heat where you could skip through and jump into the restart. You actually had to go all the way down the pit lane, and you could make your adjustments, and you of course could get the repairs. But repairs in this game, it was only car performance repairs. I mean, you wouldn't ever see visual repairs in this game. Strategy in this game to me never made any sense from the AI. Anytime you would get a caution, some drivers are going to pit, some drivers aren't, and it doesn't really make much sense. Because if they're in a fuel window, if they can make it, they sometimes will pit, sometimes they won't. It's kind of a 50-50 split. You really didn't know what to expect, and that's why you don't really want cautions, to be honest, in this game, because the AI will ruin themselves on strategy and take a lot away from the races in single player. And another thing that reminds me that has come to my mind is the AI. In NASCAR Heat Series, for example, we get cautions from AI spins and tire blowouts, and as well, engine failures. However, as I'm gonna wreck myself again trying too hard, that's embarrassing. Oh my God, it's a major crash. That was embarrassing. But as I was saying, as we get ready for a restart, look how far I moved up into the top 20 just because I stayed out in some drivers' pit. But the AI, they don't really crash themselves, naturally, and they do bring out cautions, but it's not because they're making mistakes or spinning around. It's because they have, issues. The AI flaws is what brings out the caution. You're going to see it on perfect representation right here. We just got another yellow, and it's Jamie McMurray hitting the wall and bouncing off it and getting the wall glitch that used to be in this game, that still is obviously, and going around. It wasn't like they would naturally spin out or blow a tire like the Heat Series. No, they just, of course in the Heat Series they were scripted, but they still added a lot to the races now. The only reason they really crash in this game is because of the flaw in development of the AI. But it was still pretty funny to watch here now, as suddenly coming to the final lap, because we've stayed out and whatnot, I do got damage on my right front brake rotor, but nonetheless we have managed into the top 10 as we exit turn 2 down the SPAC straightaway for the final time, and we're gonna have a chance for a top 5 here if we can pass Brad Keselowski. And how about Austin Dillon, who won this race back in 2017, is gonna do it 2 years earlier here in the game, and Ty Dillon's gonna be P3 behind Tony Stewart. But Austin Dillon wins the Coke 600. We come home P4, and that leaves one more track type to mess around on here, and that's the road course. Watkins Glen, Kyle Busch in this number 18. He won the championship, of course, in this season. This was my favorite Kyle Busch paint scheme ever. I don't know what it is. I just thought the green M&Ms always looked better than the yellow M&M's car, so I loved when they brought this car on track for the 2015 season. And here we are on the road course, and I really didn't remember how the road course is played in this game, but once again, it's a lot of fun to drive. You have so much fun driving in this game, and that's kind of the winning part of NASCAR 15, is not necessarily the AI racing experience or the career mode, of course, as they haven't really adapted it and gone far previously compared to the other games. But the part that really makes you keep coming back to this game at the time was just how much fun it was to drive and rip around these racetracks. And as well, you could really feel the speed at these racetracks in this game. They really did a good job at helping you feel the speed, and I feel like the NASCAR Heat Series, for example, did a really bad job at that, but they did a great job inside the Utechniks games here now, as we're going to go for a move on Michael Annett into this penultimate corner and going to send it up the inside of McDowell there, and then number 95 Bit of contact there, but you know what? No harm, no foul. We get things sorted out here as we come through the bus stop now on lap 2, and we got some cars cutting through the grass up here. Honestly, that's not out of the ordinary for a NASCAR road course now. As honestly, you know, the non-perfect AI, especially at a track like a road course, is quite a bit of fun because it just doesn't look like they're all planted to the same lane and, you know, doing the same thing. They're kind of all over the places. I decided I was going to get impatient and dump the 34 of David Reagan. My bad. We go into 2 laps of overtime and actually get punted into turn 1 by Michael McDowell, maybe who's not happy that I ran him out of the way earlier, and he says, get out of my way. So that's one great thing too, is, you know, the AI, they will run into you, and that's something I like as well from this era, and I really hope we get this in NASCAR 25, because honestly, I love the AI just giving me the bumper. I mean, we saw it in the Martinsville race, we got it right here in Watkins Glen. Like, please, be willing to run into me, and you know, it kind of creates its own story, say in the career mode. You know, it's like it's building a rivalry. Of course, this game never had rivalries in career mode, which sucked, but you know, that would have been something really cool that would have been in this career mode. But you know as well what this game had that we haven't gotten since? It had the All-Star race, it had the Budweiser Shootout it was called at the time, or the Sprint Unlimited, whatever it was. And it had as well the Gatorade Duels. It was always awesome having, you know, these exhibition races that somehow, all these years later, think about this, it's been 10 years since we've had the actual exhibition races in a NASCAR game. That is simply unacceptable. And hopefully NASCAR 25 is going to get that in the game. It's actually take a time penalty for cutting the track after that contact with the 43 of Eric Almirola. But yeah, just thinking that off the top of my head, it's unacceptable if we don't have those exhibition races in NASCAR 25. But nonetheless, what a fun just opportunity to come back to this game, as I'm going to completely run out of talent right at the end, but we're going to cross the line for a top 30. It was so much fun playing this again, and at top 35 I should say, but what a blast here, returning to NASCAR 15 for one more time and playing this game. And you know, it was the handling and the driving is so much fun, and I'm excited. Next week we're going to be checking out NASCAR Heat Evolution, for better or for worse. I'll see you guys in that one. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.